know, whatever. And then they'll each have 2 minutes to close. So, we're going to start with introductions, and because it normally goes in alphabetical order, I'm going to start with giveaway.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you. Is that the hometown advantage you just gave me? All right. Are we ready to go? Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for Indivisible Naperville. It has been my honor and privilege to be representing the Naperville area, Aurora area, Oswego area, and the Montgomery area for the past 13, almost 14 years as your state representative. So many of you know me, many of you know that I've been always accessible, answer every question that you guys have, and my office is open all the time for anybody to help out. So what you don't know is a little bit of my backstory, because I think in this position we need life experience, of which the good Lord has blessed me with 54 years on this earth, and also professional experience. So I was born to a teenage mom, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. In fact, my grandfather came over from Poland when he was 17, and my grandmother lived through the Depression. And two takeaways from my childhood with them is that my grandmother's feet were deformed, and I would ask her as a child, "Grandma, why is your foot deformed?" And she said, "Because I was blessed to have shoes, even if they were always too small." And my grandfather always told me that he was blessed to be in America. And so that was my foundation. When I was about 2.5, 3 years old, my mother married my stepfather, and he worked with IDW 117 in the Health and Welfare Benefits Department. And so I grew up in a union household. When I was 14, my parents divorced, and so then it was just kind of me and my mom, and I was raking leaves and mowing lawns and working ever since I was 14. When I was 17, I decided to take control and join the United States Marine Corps. So I served 4 years active duty, stationed at Camp Pendleton, California, and Okinawa, Japan. By the time I got out, my mother lost the house, and I really didn't have any place to go. So I kind of hung out with friends, and the only college that accepted me was Northern Illinois University. So I was able to go, put myself through college, and get an undergraduate degree. I got married and had my daughter, and I was working 40 hours a week when I decided to have a great idea to get my master's degree. So I did that with a 1-year-old in tow, and actually my son was born 2 weeks before I was done and was to graduate. So I have a master's degree in public administration, which is government finance. I was a registered financial advisor with Morgan Stanley Dean Winter. I have over 20 years of financial experience, including 10 years of being an alderman with the city of Aurora, and now, as I said, as your state representative. The comptroller's office is a huge office, my friends. It is a budget of $124 billion. It manages 700 different funds and has 8 different fund categories. It uses 16 million transactions a day, and how do I know this? Because I have been working side by side with the controller, and I've been working side by side by the current controller to get us out of the budget impasse that the wrong years put in. I'm the only one here with that experience. I'm the only one here with experience working with our current controller, and I'm going to continue to be the fiscal watchdog that she is into the next generation. So thank you all very much.
Hello. There you go.
There you go.
Hey, good evening to all the Indivisibles. My name is Holly Kim, and I'm running for Illinois Controller. Currently, I have the honor of serving 2 terms as Lake County Treasurer up in Lake County, Illinois. It is the 3rd largest county, where I manage $3.2 billion with a B. All checks go out with my name on it, which means out of all 4 of us, I'm the only one who's already doing the controller function. I came from a background of extreme financial hardship. I actually had a kid in college, and as soon as I told my parents, they kicked me out of the house. I had to work full-time while going to school part-time and juggling a kid. I signed up for WIC, Medicaid, the Head Start program, LIHEAP, the whole 9 yards. And I crawled across that finish line. It took me 8.5 years, but I got my degree. I firmly believe that that piece of paper was going to lift me out of all situations. And when it rains, it pours. About that same time, I had a relative who stole my identity and absolutely trashed my credit to the ground. So I'm very proud that 23 years later, I am a 2-term county treasurer in charge, the most trusted of billions of dollars of public funds. And I also sit on a municipal bonds pool of schools, libraries, and villages, their investment pool of $2 billion. My specialty is changing government tangibly. I think we're all in a place, no matter what party, where it's like, I'm tired of your polished bullet points. What are you actually going to do that's going to make my life better? And that's been my history. As a village trustee, I taught people how to appeal their assessments, keep a little more money in their pockets for groceries. I also taught them their rights and how to run for office. At the township, we physically converted, took out the dais, and made it a shopping cart food pantry. Again, tangible change that you could see, feel, and experience for the community. As county treasurer, I delivered 200% investment returns compared to the last treasurer, and I'm very proud that I was able to give $6 million back to my schools, my parks, my libraries. There's a school out there who received $140,000 they never asked for. So here's what I'll do as controller. Number one, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do the job. I'll expand our cybersecurity, I'll process map and get rid of inefficiency. That's my specialty because I come from a tech background. I stop processes that don't work and implement new things that do. And I think you could tell based on my history that I'm an outside the box thinker. Secondly, I want to expand our prevailing wage department. With all the data centers and the solar farms that are popping up, we need to be proactive and we need to add more people to that department. Currently, there's only 2. Lastly, I'm a huge privacy rights advocate, which I thought was a nerdly thing for me, but it's very appropriate now as there's federal mega overreach all over the place for our privacy data. This office sits on top of every time we filed our taxes and received a return, so it matters that who sits over there delivers a hefty FU to the federal government when they try to access your data. I'm someone who not only can do the job on day one financially, but I've also stood with you on social issues. I've started 2 rapid response teams, and I join you in all the No Kings rallies. I look forward to answering your questions tonight. My name is Holly Kim. I'm running for Illinois Controller.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Karina Villa, and yes, I am a state senator, but before that, I was a school social worker for 15 years, and my favorite title is and always will be Miss Villa. I have never led from behind a desk or from an ivory tower. I have always, whether it was when I was a school social worker, going on home visits and seeing what was going on every day in the working families' houses, or from the time that I was a state senator and COVID hit, state representative, and COVID hit, I was in the community and making sure to bring thousands of vaccines to the workplaces, to the churches, and to the schools. Also, as a state senator, recently, when ICE came and wreaked havoc in my community, I chased them out of town, and I said, not in my city.
Yes, you did.
So why run for controller? We need bold leaders in every single seat in this state. And every lever needs to be pulled within those seats to make sure that we're fighting against the Trump regime, which is why on day one as controller, I am gonna look through all of the books and any contracts that we have with companies that are currently making profits from ICE, they will no longer be allowed to have those contracts here in the state of Illinois because those are our dollars. Also, when it comes time to paying bills on time, yes, I will pay those bills on time. And I will celebrate the fact that we're paying those bills on time. But let me tell you, right now, the way that we're balancing our budgets is by slashing services to healthcare, mental health services, housing. We're not funding childcare. And why is that? Because billionaires and corporations are getting tax vacations by that Trump regime. Here in the state of Illinois, once I become the controller, I'm going to use the microphone of the office to go around the state and talk about how we need to tax those same billionaires and corporations here in Illinois. We need to be the adults in the room and bring that revenue to fund the services that our people need. Also, when it comes to procurement, what we're seeing is that vendors are coming in from out of state to get these contracts. What I want to do is make sure that those contracts are staying here, that it's Illinois jobs, and that we're making sure that the companies that are owned by people of color or by women, that they have access to those contracts. We need to fortify our small businesses in Illinois. We don't need to forget about them, we need to fortify them. I am the only progressive running for this seat. I can't wait to take more questions in the rest of the time, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm State Representative Margaret Croak. By way of background, I've spent my entire career in public service, Cook County, City of Chicago, State of Illinois, with my mission always being to make Illinois the best place to earn a good wage and raise a family. I'm the mom of 3 kiddos. They are 6, 3, and 2, and I am working every single day to give them and every child in our state the opportunities that they deserve. Before I was a state rep, I was Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and we took that office over after the Romney administration. So it was completely decimated. So I was tasked with hiring dozens of people in state government, which for those who have worked in it know that that can take a long time and is a very nuanced problem. Stand up brand new agencies like a grants department, and to make sure that we were implementing a strategic plan. And we got on our feet, and then COVID hit. And we had to pivot, and we had to get 6,500 grants out. We had to focus our works on making sure that our businesses were not closing, and then still figure out how we were going to continue to build the economy of the state of Illinois. So my background has been in government administration, working in state government. That now is Deputy Chief of Staff is the Department of Commerce, now I chair the House Financial Institutions Committee, so I've become the foremost authority in payment processing, depositories, and financial technology. I am running for this seat because it is a critical moment for our state, and I think that we could be doing more within the office. And I think we need to make sure that while we are not facing a pandemic in a virus way, we are facing a pandemic of the Trump administration. And we need someone who's going to be proactive and know how to use this office to protect the state of Illinois. My plan is simple. I want to make sure we are modernizing our software systems so you all can see how we spend taxpayer dollars, codify our prevailing wage enforcement, so gosh forbid we ever have a Ronner-like governor, that we are protecting our workers, and we are making sure that we are paying our vendors and our nonprofits on time. Right now, with so much chaos that is occurring around us, I believe Illinois has the opportunity to lead. That we can lead with good governance, making sure we are balancing our budget, and that we are investing in our people. So I thank you so much. I'm excited to answer questions, and thank you to Indivisible Illinois for everything you've done today.
So we're going to start with one of our little lightning round questions, and it's either a one-word answer or very briefly. Licorice, red or black?
Red.
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 I hate licorice.
All right, so for our first question, we're going to start with Lake County Treasurer Holly Kim. She'll start it. In a recent forum held in Chicago, 3 questions were asked of each of you. How does your experience line up with the duties of the comptroller's office? How effective is the recently passed $55 billion budget in addressing the needs of the state? Is Illinois generating enough in revenue to support our democratic priorities? I want you to pick one of those 3 bullet points and elaborate for the audience.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, I kind of want to touch on all of them. As far as experience goes, again, I have executive management experience in capacity of doing the controller function. Susanna Mendoza herself, the current controller, has been my work mentor the last 7 years. In fact, I was just at Loyola University last night with her, talking to a bunch of students about fiscal policy and women in finance. I would say that I do have the most experience in this race. But experience comes in broad stroke, right? It's not only just money and maximizing technology in the office. I also found ways to digitize work so staff can work from home 2 days a week. I think it matters who you have as a manager, because we've all worked for people who have had no management experience but have been our manager. And again, that kind of stuff matters when you have a department that's this big, and especially when it comes to government managing, right? That's different. Also, what we can put money in is completely different managing it in the government sector. The Illinois Public Funds Investment Act tells us what we can and can't invest in, and I must adhere to that very strictly. So when I was able to get 200% returns, so for example, our reserves used to produce $6 million when I first got there from the former treasurer, and after I got there, it produces $24 million. That's over 200% returns. All completely guided by the Illinois Public Funds Investment Act. Only the parameters of what we can invest in, right? Nothing that can go down, no foreign investments, no foreign subsidiaries, all those kinds of rules that I must adhere to. And I think that kind of perspective is very important in this office, Because as someone who also used the Illinois Medicaid program and took kids to go to a doctor's office, I also worked at the same doctor's office and understand that when the cash flow doesn't come from the controller's office, that it really affects human beings. And I remember saying to the doctor, how can they not pay us? It's been months, like how do we pay the staff? And he said, truly, he goes, that's why some doctors stopped taking it. And it sunk into me that when I took the kids to the pediatric dentist, they did stop taking it, and I had to go 40 miles out to a dentist in Waukegan. And so it all came full circle that it made sense to me, but that's how the reimbursements of this office affect real people. Fast forward to when I worked at this nonprofit, or I sat on the board, it's called Connell Family Alliance, and it's a senior care organization where we send people for home health care to the seniors' homes. And during the time of Rauner and Leslie Munger, and they were not reimbursing us, we only had 2 months of operating budget left. And that was another, how is this real? What are we gonna do with the seniors when we can't send anyone to their homes? Who's gonna take care of them? And so the perspective has not been lost on me that I come from a really unique, multifaceted view in not only being a fiduciary and responsible for money, but totally seeing how any delay and how the controller's office, right, and reimbursements affect real lives of real people.
And next down to Senator Villa.
All right, let's think about this office and how on earth it actually connects to each and every one of you. If you are a parent of someone with a disability, or if you are a senior on a fixed income, if you are a recent college graduate who might have a child or two, and you're wondering how you're going to pay your next paycheck, or where you're going to find the medical services or mental health services, how are you going to pay your next paycheck? How are you going to pay your next rent? This office matters to you. Because the way that we're currently balancing the budget is by slashing services, right? That's how we're balancing. I know that for a fact because I comb through every budget. And I see with heartache when we cut funding to mental health services, to housing, when we don't fully fund education, when we have no fixes to tier 2. So I haven't sat back and said, oh well. I have joined forces with other like-minded individuals. Those folks elected me to be the head, the chair of the Progressive Caucus in the Senate. As such, we came up with different revenue ideas last session. We put those in to the revenue package, and the revenue ideas were not on the backs of everyday people. The revenue ideas came from closing corporate loopholes. That's why I don't take any corporate dollars. Closing the loopholes and taxing billionaires. We even put in the revenue package a tax on digital ads. You know those pharmaceutical companies that have all these ads? They don't pay a penny in taxes, just like Amazon doesn't pay taxes at the federal level. We should tax them here in the state of Illinois. We got that put into the revenue package. We sent it over to the House, and one of my opponents worked hard to make sure to take it out. That's a problem. So when we're talking about the controller's seat and who is the most qualified, the school social worker who understands that budgets are moral documents, that is the most qualified person for this seat. The person who has fought hard to bring money to free and charitable clinics to do their work, the person who held their vote at the end of last session on the budget to make sure that safety net hospitals in Chicago and in rural Illinois had their funding so they wouldn't close their doors, that is the person who is most qualified for this seat. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think one of the questions was the qualifications question, so I'm gonna go with that one. I got excited in 2018 when J.B. Pritzker announced that he was going to run because I saw our social service safety nets completely collapse. And that's what made me want to be his director of women's outreach on that campaign. And then when we worked on that campaign, we spoke with so many providers who were terrified about the fact that they were only going to be able to keep their doors open for 2 more weeks. I remember I was speaking with a child care provider in Chicago, and she was talking about how she was going to have to start either laying off her staff, and then if she still wasn't going to get paid by the state, she was going to have to close her doors. And she was part of the Head Start program, and she knew that her families were not going to be able to find the same level of care for their kiddos and be able to afford it. And now as a mom of 3, that's something that I always think back, because I think about how these dollars, every dollar we spend in the comptroller's office is a reflection of what we value and what we care about, and that these dollars have real impact for people's lives. So when I went over to DCEO and we rebuilt, that was an experience that I hope to be able to never have to do within the comptroller's office, but it prepares you for operating a state agency, one that is larger than the comptroller's office. DCEO is 400 people and oversees the disbursement of billions of dollars. Just understanding how hiring works within the state, understanding that unfortunately, no, you can't blow things up, even as much as you want to. Sometimes you have to work within the system. And one of my big policies that I want to undertake is revamping our vendor payment program, and that's because I see the Trump administration waiting to take its vengeance out on the state of Illinois and constrain our revenues. And the vendor payment program would allow us to work with financial institutions so that they pay our invoices. Yes, unfortunately, we would potentially get into a bill backlog situation again, but I would know that I can sleep at night that invoices for childcare, for behavioral health, for our small businesses are being paid, and the state of Illinois was a financial institution and not those individuals. Because I know that those individuals can never stand back up, that they may never be ever able to reopen. And now as a legislator, I think it's so important you have that experience as well, because so much of what we do is part of the entire ecosystem of state government. I can't make some of those changes to the vendor payment program if I don't know how to pass legislation, if I don't know how to work with my colleagues, if I don't know how all of this ties in together. So on day 1, I will know how to get things done. And I think that is incredibly important in this office. And then I chair financial institutions. So all of the things that the comptroller does is my basic knowledge base. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. First and foremost, I want to say that I served on local government, and local government and county government is nothing like state government. And so while I appreciate the treasurer, we have a treasurer, and she does a great job as a treasurer. She talked about the investments that our treasurer does. She talks about all the things that our treasurer does. I'm going to talk about what the comptroller's office does, because I have been working hand in hand with the current controller, who actually was a state representative for 12 years, which is why she's been a phenomenal controller. I'm not going to pull her down and say that the bills haven't been paid on time. They have been paid on time. There are some that have been delayed, and I know this. Why do I know this? Because I am the only one on this panel that worked on the inside house budget working group during the Rauner years. So while on the outside there had been effects, I was on the inside fighting for every single one of you, fighting for domestic violence shelters, fighting for cervical cancer screenings, fighting so that Chicago State didn't close, working on the budget. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to know what's in the budget, and I'm the only one that's been talking about the budget and the numbers and what we have to do it. I have 20 years of fiscal experience, specifically in government fiscal experience. I have a master's degree, and I'm talking about my degree, so because I think knowing what the degree that a person holds is important. So a fiscal degree in government, master's of public administration is what I did. So what else have I done to stand up for you? I stood up for Bruce Rauner during the budget impasse. You can Google it. I stood up to Mike Madigan. I'll stand up to Donald Trump. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I'm not going to let anybody take down our country or the state. My son's serving in the Navy. My son-in-law's in the Army. My daughter's going back to NIU for accounting. We are numbers people. So I appreciate people talking about having the experience. I have the experience in the trenches with you guys. So we announced the People First Initiative, which is some things that I think, even though Susanna's doing a great job, and I've worked hand in hand with Susanna, I passed the Budget Stabilization Act, the Debt Transparency Act. So the People First Initiative doesn't just expand people in the prevailing wage department, it actually looks at working men and women and creates a labor division to make sure that the OSHA standards are in place, to make sure men and women are taken care of. And we also have a nonprofit to community development division, which means from appropriation to the organization, you will know exactly where it's at. And lastly, everybody talks about technological upgrades. Guess what? The current comptroller's already doing it. $53 million project. So I'm gonna keep working with her and keep being the fiscal watchdog you guys deserve.
All right, and for our next lightning round question, ready? We're gonna start with Senator Villa. Cable or streaming?
Streaming.
Neither.
Oh,
Streaming.
Streaming.
well, too bad, Verizon. All right, so it's gonna be 2 minutes for this next question.
Only two?
Are you ready?
No.
Oh, geez. I just threw a curveball to the timer.
All right, we're good.
All right, we're gonna start with Senator Villa. Under the Pritzker administration and Comptroller Mendoza, Illinois has improved its bond rating from the BBB to an A-. Balanced budgets reflecting improved resources and management have given us these upgrades. However, our bonded indebtedness remains relatively high at nearly $42 billion as of September 30th, 2025. Please speak to this issue. Do we have a spending or a revenue problem? What role do our state pension systems play in all this? Oh, and it went right into her wheelhouse.
It's a revenue problem. We are the 8th most progressive state. 8th most progressive state when it comes to our tax structure, y'all. It's terrible. The way that we tried to pass the amendment last time didn't work because guess what? Those of us in the suburbs were not reached out to. We were not campaigned. It was all campaigning in the city. We need to try to do this constitutional amendment again, immediately. And we need to attach it to something. It can't just be, we're gonna change the tax structure. Because guess what? People don't trust politicians. So you're gonna put it in a lockbox and it's gonna go to education, in my opinion, because what's crushing us? Our property taxes. Where do our property taxes go to? Education, right? So we need to fully fund the schools. Where are we gonna fully fund the schools from if we don't have any more money, right? So 2 things. 1, constitutional amendment, get it done. 2, we need to still close corporate loopholes. We need to find other ways to bring in other progressive revenue ideas to the table, right? Because what we know right now is that with Project 2025, he told us straight out what he was gonna do, and he's doing it. He's slashing the budget federally to give all of these tax incentives to his billionaire and corporate cronies, and to fund the masked monsters, billions and billions and billions of our tax dollars to fund those masked monsters. How is he doing it? By slashing services to the people who need it the most. So we need to be the adults in the room here in the state of Illinois. We need to tax the billionaires and the corporations, and we need to start relieving the burden on everyday people. Thank you.
Thank you. So our credit rating has increased 10 times since Governor Pritzker's administration, which is directly how our bond rating goes. That's how that changes, because when we have a good credit rating, we can go into the bond market and we have better interest. What is exciting is we are in a time where the interest on our bonds is going to be better than our pensions. So right now we have $140 billion worth of pension debt. 45% of that is actually in interest, not member benefits. So one of the things that I think is so important, because we have had our revenues increase significantly since fiscal year 2019. It's gone from 39 billion to 55 billion. But you need to know that during that time we had massive inflation. During that time we had our pension debt increase. 20% of our GRF budget is pensions. So really only 2% of that growth was discretionary funding. And that's information I think that you all need to have when you hear some of the false narratives about the increase in the budget over the past 6 years. Because I heard, it's a spending issue, but we should know only 2% of that, has increased in discretionary funding. But at the same time, because we are fighting a lot of misinformation, we need to have better systems in place for you all to be able to see how taxpayer dollars are spent. I think we need to rebuild that transparency. There were so many years in the state of Illinois where people really did not trust in government. So my plan is to implement a software system where you will be able to see the life cycle of those taxpayer dollars. Well, you will see an appropriation in the budget for $50 million for workforce, and you'll know that it goes to DCEO, and then this contractor was awarded the bill, and then the comptroller paid it on this day. And I think if we can reestablish that baseline and give you that information, we can talk about whether or not we need more revenues and how we're going to get those revenues.
Thank you so much. Obviously, to talk about indebtedness, you need to look at the budget. So as my colleague said, and as I'm the chair of pensions appropriations, we do have a significant pension debt. The pension debt is similar like a mortgage. We can't pay it all at once. We have a funding cycle that is due to pay it off in 2040. However, it is onerous and it takes up a bunch of our budget. We have the $55 billion budget, which was talked about earlier, but Illinois has in all funds $124 billion. So when you look at our indebtedness, is it the $48 billion that we're doing for our infrastructure fixes that we raise revenue for those bonds, those indebtedness? So you have to look at the specific ways in which the indebtedness, how much debt we are carrying. So in talking about our ratings going up to A, I was the only one when we had a $17 billion deficit, or bill backlog. $17 billion bill backlog. Working side by side with the current controller, knowing how the controller's office works, knowing that the leadership of the controller's office, it's a team effort. Running an office, just like the office that I run now or any other nonprofit office, is a team effort. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm somebody who's a magician that can just turn around everything in a second. There's a team in place that is working on bringing transparency and trust to the Office of the Controller through a $73 million upgrade to the technology. It's already in place, folks, and this is why I know this, because I work side by side with the current controller. And so we got out of the bill backlog as I work side by side. We have debt transparency on the website already. You can tell when a voucher is paid on the website already. We need to make it a little bit more streamlined, but the current controller already has that in the works, and I will continue to do that and continue the good work that's been done. I'm not gonna tear her down to make me look better. She's done good work, so thank you very much.
All right, so I'm glad this question came up because actually the bonded indebtedness of the state is one of the top 3 important things this office does, and most people don't know. And I appreciate that the current controller, Susanna Mendoza, in her most recent transparency initiative, posts on Facebook every single week how much is left of the bonds, whether it's going down or up, and by how much. The weekly chart shows the progress in paying down the major bond debt, and I think the way we could think of it is that it's like anything that's 10 to 30 years debt, kind of like a house mortgage. So by Illinois law, it's something that we have to pay first before we pay anything else. And one of the things that they hold in very high standard due to this, the rules of the bond indebtedness, is that there's a whole faith and trust. It is backed by full faith and credit in the state of Illinois, and that really helps us to have good bond ratings. And where this comes in importance is when the state of Illinois ever wants to borrow money, again, just like our own home finances, the better your credit is, the lower that APR is going to be when you buy that car, and it's no different at the state of Illinois. So whoever's in this position needs to take into seriousness the actual duties of this position and the fact that you are in charge of this amount of money, and we need to not dip into reserves when we don't need to, and be that fiscal watchdog that we need to be. In the question that you had asked, whether it is a revenue or a spending problem, I do want to add a pebble to the vase of water that we would do so much better if we passed the progressive tax. And I agree that initially the communications was not that great and it was only marketed in certain areas. But I'm a firm believer because I get a lot passed and through in bipartisan support, just using different verbiage. Over at Lake County during COVID time, we were able to fold in business owners into our COVID relief, much because we just changed the verbiage so it wasn't as heated. And I think this office could be used in lots of ways with data to help pass the progressive tax. Thank you.
All righty. I know. The next question, exciting, lightning round. Road trip or plane ride?
Oh, I have 3 kids, so neither.
We do a road trip if it's up to our lake house, but other than that, I do a plane ride.
There you go.
Road trip.
Plane ride.
Depends on where you're going.
Yes, yes.
I know. So for our third question, again, 2 minutes, yes, timer. The Budget Stabilization Fund, better known as the state's rainy day fund, was spent down during the 2015 to 2017 budget impasse. Under the current leadership of the comptroller's office, that fund is now at $2.5 billion. These are dollars earmarked to cover revenue drops and cash flow gaps, allowing government operations to continue. What is your vision for this fund?
So unfortunately, that fund is not big enough. That fund will only cover, I think, about 2 weeks of operations within the state of Illinois. It's one of the lower in the entire country, and we should be looking at how we can increase that just in case there is, the worst case scenario that we have to eventually, I think, dip into it. But the goal is never to do that just because it would impact our credit rating. It would create a concern about the stability within the state of Illinois. And right now we have dedicated revenues that go to the rainy day fund. So the interest stays in the fund. We are supposed to be doing a monthly transfer from GRF into the fund. However, we have paused that temporarily because we have seen some constraint on our revenues and we want to have that flexibility. Cannabis, a specific line of cannabis revenues goes into the rainy day fund. And then some of the payments made back on the unemployment trust. I think we need to make sure that those funds and those revenue streams are going within the rainy day fund. I would like to see our credit rating continue to increase, and it was mentioned the reason that is so important is because it allows us to borrow money. It allows us to go into the bond market and then make long-term investments like public infrastructure or schools or things that we know we will be paying off for a long period of time, but we need to be able to have that additional liquidity to make those investments. So my goal within the rainy day fund is to continue to build it up so that we can make sure we are managing more days within operation, gosh forbid anything were to happen to the state of Illinois.
So, thank you. As the only one that served during 2017, we actually didn't dip into the rainy day fund. We just didn't have a rainy day fund. Going back to the Quinn years, they just never put any money into the rainy day fund. So, while I appreciate the question, it technically has a technicality with it. The rainy day fund was $48,000. That's like not even a millisecond for the state. And as was mentioned, we're at $2.5 billion right now, and we have a plan. Actually, the Budget Stabilization Act was the bill that I passed along with the Comptroller's Office. What is missing in some of the dialogue is that the Comptroller's Office works hand in hand with the General Assembly to make sure that legislation is passed so that we are doing things fiscally responsible. And you have to be a legislator to know that process. And so when we're looking at the rainy day fund, we need to increase that rainy day fund. And as was mentioned, those transfers were paused and they can be paused. So we're not gonna go back to the Rona years, and I'm gonna explain why. Because people talk about it like it's something that can happen again. I was the only one during the Rona years. And what happened was Governor Quinn negotiated the income tax to go to 5% and made it temporary. we had obligations federally under that money. Then Ronner came in and lowered it, and it lowered automatically to 3.75, and he would not negotiate on that. We had federal obligations, and we didn't have the money to pay those federal obligations. We got sued, and we had to continue through a thing called continuing appropriations to obligate those expenditures. So then, the budget working group, working with moderate Republicans, brought it back up to 4.95. And while our revenues might be short, if we might have some constraint in our budget, we will never really have a situation like we did with Governor Ronner, because we do have continuing appropriations for important things in our books already. So thank you very much.
So as county treasurer, I was elected by 131,000 votes, which is nearly double everyone else up here combined. I have a very large district, and so I love talking about growing reserves and how that works towards helping government. I'm so relieved that the state has made so much progress within the last few years in the rainy day fund, coming from next to nothing to $2.4 billion now. However, the credit rating agencies has asked, and they want it to be at about $5.5 billion, according to them. So that would be a goal of mine to get into office. You know, you have to work with the legislators to get something like that passed. I know that Susana Mendoza, the current controller, has worked on a bill multiple times. Last year too, on the Senate side, it didn't come out of committee where Senator Halpin was trying to push it, but so that when the revenues are over 4%, that a certain percentage would go to the rainy day fund, but also that if the debt was below a certain amount, that a 1% would also go to the pension fund as well. So there's some bills that are in the works, and as controller, I would definitely continue to work on those bills. In fact, I called Senator Halpin today to kind of ask and pick his brain, why do you think it did or didn't pass? And he said some of the reasons of why it didn't pass was because some of the legislators didn't want an automatic transfer. They wanted the ability to control it themselves. But as the chief fiscal officer, what I would want is, of course, what's best for the money. And sometimes, you know, whether it's popular or not, you gotta talk about money and talk about facts. Prudent fiscal responsibility, I'm gonna continue to put that money away. And this is a function that I've definitely done at Lake County, again, growing our reserves from $6 million a year in investments to $24 million, and I'm very proud of that. We have up to over $500 million in our reserves, and when I started, it was at 300 some odd million. So I'm very proud of that. And we don't want to pay more interest in any of our investments with lower credit ratings, because again, this is your taxpayer money.
Before I ever decided to run for controller, I would go and visit my colleagues in different parts of the state. And let me tell you that some of my colleagues have dire situations in their districts. Food deserts, no jobs, housing issues, education that has next to no funding. So let's talk about our rainy day fund. When we think about a rainy day, we're in the middle of a tsunami right now. How did we start putting money into that rainy day fund? A thing called COVID happened, and we got money from the federal government, and those of us who were in the legislature at that time made the decision to take some of that money and put it in the rainy day fund, and guess what? The revenues for the state of Illinois were through the roof. You know why? Because those essential workers who were told that they had to keep going to work, started at the factories, they kept working, and we had so many gains. Over projection of gains in the state of Illinois during COVID because of those workers that kept going to work. So we had all of this money, and it was great, and we all were happy, and we all celebrated. But that money is gone. Things are different. The pressure is greater. So celebrating, we're gonna put money in the rainy day fund, while I go across the state and see what is happening in people's communities, while safety net hospitals are closing their doors, and while people are committing suicide in our farm countries, because of what's happening to their farms. Let's talk about the real issues and where we're going to put our money when. Thank you.
All right, ready?
Ready.
Have you binge watched an entire season of TV without leaving your house?
Of course, I'm a millennial.
What is it though?
Yeah.
Of course.
So I mean, The Diplomat is amazing. Everyone should check that out. But also, I love Real Housewives, and I'm not afraid to admit that.
Yes, Schitt's Creek.
There you go.
I have not watched anything.
Neither have I.
During COVID, Tiger King, come on.
Which I had to explain to my young son, that's not real. And he's like, yeah, it is.
Tiger King.
Wow. All right. So for our last question here, how can our state government protect itself from any acts that the Trump administration may make, like it did in January of 26 when it said it would freeze $1 billion in child care payments, or with respect to the federal government shutdown? Our state seems to be a target. Are there ways we can protect our fiscal interests? And it goes to Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. As was mentioned, the state of Illinois has worked really hard on our budget and making sure that things are as tight as possible, but there's more that we can do. Right now, our Attorney General Cormier has over 50 court cases against the federal government. But one of the things that I think that we need to do is be at the ready. For example, SNAP benefits was held up by the federal government, and then a judge released and ordered those funds released. And on November 1st, 6 states got 100% of that benefit for their residents. Illinois wasn't one of them. So as controller, I'm going to create a rapid response team to make sure that as soon as the court moves, as soon as they move, if it's midnight, if it's 1 p.m., whenever that time is, we are there for the residents to make sure that we grab all those funds and make sure that we hold the government accountable. Now, going through the Rona years as the only candidate that went through the Rona years, Donald Trump's using the same tactics. They're squeezing and really making life miserable for those that are the most vulnerable among us. And so working with the General Assembly and working to make sure that we have protections in place for our residents is very important. And being the fact that we worked with the General Assembly during the Rona years, I know how to work with the General Assembly to fight back against Trump, to make sure we get every single dollar that's accounted for. Because again, I'm the only one up here talking about numbers, talking about the $124 billion budget that the state of Illinois. And I do have to appreciate when the treasurer highlights my bills. So sure, Senator Halpin might have had it in the Senate. I actually had that bill that she just talked about in the House. So she actually could have just called me and I would have told her all about that bill as well. So we have to make sure we have legislation such as that bill that she highlighted, such as bills that I've passed in with conjunction with the current controller. That legislation is airtight to make sure that we go up against the Trump administration. And I wasn't afraid of Ronner, I wasn't afraid of Madigan, and I sure as hell's not afraid of Trump. So thank you all very much.
Okay, so how to protect the residents of Illinois. I know currently J.B. Pritzker has told the legislature to put $500 million to the side. It's no secret that with 3 more years of Trump in office, that there are going to be federal cuts. He is targeting the state of Illinois, he's targeting all the blue states. I think during times of tragedy, we've all seen how people come together, and this is going to be no different. Every department's going to have to work with each other. I'm definitely someone who will work well with the legislature and the other constitutionals, but I don't work for them. So I'll keep an arm's reach, but I definitely want to work through hard times. I'll prioritize all of our social service reimbursements. As someone who literally has experienced every facet of our social services and their providers, I will make sure that this office, really the superpower is the hand over the faucet and controlling the water. That we prioritize not only the staff of government, because during hard times, you need government the most. During COVID, it was always our first responders and all the villages, schools still had to go, even though everything was shutting down. So in addition to the staff, it would be the social services, rural health. We don't want any services shutting down in the middle of all that. And during COVID time, even in my own office, when there was no PPE, I literally went to Home Depot and got coroplast boards just to do whatever we can. Because in my office, we process everyone's property tax checks, and without us depositing that and distributing it to the people, all government was gonna shut down and not function any longer. I also want to protect everyone, again, through privacy rights. I'm a privacy rights advocate, and this office is also in charge of not only our tax refunds, but 100,000 pensioners data for the state of Illinois, and 60,000 plus staff for the state of Illinois as well. And so while they are overreaching, we need to push back, but at the end of it all, be organized and ready to vote. There's absolutely nothing that can flip all of the government seats that we want to get rid of, like voting them out.
We are already there. Money is already short. The governor is about to introduce the budget. Make sure to watch it. Last session when we passed the budget, there were already massive cuts. If you didn't realize that, talk to someone with a child with special needs, talk to somebody who works in a school, talk to somebody who works in a hospital, talk to somebody that is a nurse or is a at-home care worker, someone who lives day to day like a working class person. Ask them. We are already there. So sometimes at these forums it can get stifling because I hear these conversations and where are the solutions? Where are the solutions? We need to hold corporations accountable because we need more revenue now. It's not about the next 3 years, it's immediate. We closed 2 abortion clinics already in this state. You ask someone who's trans if we have enough revenue. You ask someone who has a child who needs mental health help if the state is doing enough, and the answer is no, because we don't have enough money now. We need revenue, and it cannot be on the backs of the working people because we cannot afford it. I'm tired of thinking of austerity every day. There is a future for our state if we hold these billionaires and corporations accountable. We must be the adults in the room and do that in Illinois. Thank you.
I just want to be clear that what Donald Trump is doing is not only wrong and cruel, it is unconstitutional. And the fact that we have an attorney general who is fighting these cases every single day is incredibly important, but we have a judicial system that could be stacked up against us because of Trump appointees. And there may be a day in which one of these challenges does not release the funding that we are owed as a state of Illinois. We are also a donor state, which many of you know. We pay the federal government more than we get back. And that's incredibly frustrating too, because we see our dollars funding red state initiatives. So I talked about the vendor payment program, trying to think about this in the sense of how can I utilize something that already exists within our government, within the comptroller's office, to try to help, to make sure that we do have our vendors and our nonprofits keeping their doors open if there is a constraint on our revenues. Because the federal government is the last to pay. We tend to front a lot of the bills that we know we will be later reimbursed for from the federal government, and those dollars may never come. I want to talk about local units of government really quickly because that is something the comptroller interfaces with a lot. And what were we doing technical assistance-wise to make sure that they are also providing the services they need to provide within their communities? They spend hundreds of staffing hours on their audits. They're not forensic audits. These are audits that we post online. We need to do a better job within the comptroller's office of providing technical assistance so they don't have to pay $25,000 to get an audit, so that that money goes directly back to the communities, and that they're also not spending all their staffing hours doing an audit. They should be doing what they were elected to do, which is providing you all services. It's a really scary time right now. We need to be able to weather 2 years, and that's why I got into this race, because I want to make sure I'm leaving this state the best possible place for my kids. And you will get a fighter with me.
All right, so that ends our questions, and we're going to give each of these candidates 2 minutes to close out, recap, and tell you anything else they want to do. Start. I'm just going. All right, out of the way every time.
Thank you. Again, my name is Holly Kim. I'm running for Illinois Controller. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. As someone who had a stolen identity and had to cobble together every single aspect of my finances, I'm very proud that 23 years later, I am the most trusted with money. I will make sure to prioritize our social service providers during hard times, and I will protect you and your family and your money in the way that I wish someone would have done for me back then. I'm a solid Democrat that can win the state of Illinois. I've been going around the whole state. This is a statewide position. And there are some county Dem chairs out there that say I'm the only one who's called them or met with them in person. And so I will represent everyone in the state equally. I don't accept any special interest money. We are a grassroots campaign. And in fact, while I'm here with you today, we have a county coordinator Zoom that's happening with 35 people in it from across the state of Illinois. I serve on the Comptroller's Bank On Commission, where I taught against financial scams, including not only crypto, but people's government check scams as well. And I also did a blockchain chat, and I sat on Alexi Janulius's tech transition team. I'm well versed to take over the seat of the Comptroller's office, but now calls for a fighter as well. And I've started 2 rapid response teams. I've been with you for every No Kings rally, every Women's March, every Black Lives Matter protest, and I will stand with you during these hard times at every rally. I have a great mentor who told me that if you're a great leader, after you win, you represent everyone. And that was Susana Mendoza last night. I'm very proud to be endorsed by Indivisible Ogle County, Indivisible Rally Together Elk Grove, Niles, Shawnee, all Indivisible chapters, and multiple statewide Indivisible leaders. On Friday, I'll be assembling whistle kits with Melissa, who's running in DePage, and Lucy Chang Evans will be hosting a meet and greet for me at her house, and Flo FL will also be hosting a meet and greet for me as well. My name is Holly Kim, and I'm running for Illinois State Controller, and I appreciate your vote of confidence March 17th. Thank you.
Transparency starts with our campaign donors and donations. I will never take $1 from AIPAC, the gun lobby, corporations, or billionaires. One of my opponents has taken over $100,000 from MAGA donors. Another one of my opponents has decided to use her campaign money as a slush fund to invest $8,000 into cryptocurrency. So maybe that's why she decided to teach people about why it's a bad idea, because that same crypto that she used her campaign money from is now worth nothing. Listen, we need real fighters in the seat of the controller. This is your money. It's your taxes. As a school social worker, I was with my students in their hardest moments. They are my North Star. They are why I do the work that I do. I am a proud progressive, and I don't need to Google synonyms for progressive. Because here, the Democratic primary voters of the state of Illinois want a true working class progressive to watch over their money. I am proud to be endorsed with over 30 endorsements from folks in the General Assembly in both chambers. I also have the endorsement of Delia Catalina Ramirez, one of the boldest fighters in Washington, D.C. I hope that I can count on your vote. Many of you in this room today helped me get elected when I first ran and flipped a district in 2018 and flipped the Jim Oberweis seat in 2020. I thank you for your time tonight. This election matters. Thank you.
thank you all for coming out to just even find out what the comptroller's office does. I will tell you that if this office breaks down, state government breaks down. So it's incredibly important. So thank you all. I'll say, I value fiscal responsibility. I don't think that's a bad thing. But at the same time, I recognize that fiscal responsibility goes hand in hand with making sure we are protecting our most vulnerable communities. I have been on the front lines of investing in education and our social service safety net. But we can't do that unless we have stable funding. We can't give our kids the future they deserve if we don't have a fiscal house that's in order. And I'm running because I don't want people to have to choose between putting food on the table and paying for their child care, where our vendors are paid on time, and that you all know that we are managing your taxpayer money as responsibly as if it was our own. This office is not glamorous. This office is someone who wants to do the job and do it well, who has a background in government administration, and who understands how we need to pivot and be flexible and try to protect this state from the crises that seem to be just thrown at us. I have been incredibly lucky on this campaign. I've received the endorsement of Governor Pritzker, of Attorney General Kwame Raoul, the Cook County Democratic Party, 2 statewide labor organizations, Labor, the Pipe Trades, and I believe we are winning, we are building a winning coalition, and I hope to be able to earn your support. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you very much. First, if you want to look at my endorsements, you can look at my website. They're all listed there. I'm not going to sit here and brag about it because the #1 endorsement that I've had is from the residents of the city of Aurora when they voted me in as alderman, and the residents of the 84th district entrusting me to do their job for the last 13 years. And that's the endorsement that I hold near and dear to my heart. The Comptroller's Office is the Chief Fiscal Officer of the state. The Comptroller's Office sits on the Illinois State Board of Investments and Pensions as the only registered financial advisor on this panel. I am the only one that actually understands investments. Series 7, Series 63, Series 6. I was, trained in that. The Comptroller's Office has been doing a great job of transparency and accountability. I hear the individuals of this panel, like Susanna Mendoza, didn't even exist. So it's one thing to have lunch with the controller or to hang out. It's another thing to be in the trenches during the Rana years, to claw us out together from a $17 billion deficit, from the depths of despair. So working hand in hand with the current controller, I know what the controller does. She values transparency and accountability. She is independent of the governor, as I will be. She is the fiscal watchdog. I have worked with her CIO, her chief information officer, her chief security officer. I know the cybersecurity that is going into place. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm not gonna tear down somebody that's already in office. She's doing a great job, and I've seen it hand in hand for the last 10 years. And I will continue to be that independent watchdog, and I will continue the great things that she has already in the pipe. And that is part of being a team, and that is part of being a leader, of being able to say when somebody's done a good job. So thank you all very much.
Now it's my turn. I want to thank the 4 of you that came this evening. I know you traveled a long way. Let's give them one more round of applause. And we are grateful to the Indivisible organizations who supported this effort tonight. Very thankful that we have Indivisible Illinois live streaming, and I think it's on our Facebook page as well. So we're doing a good job getting this out to the voters. I want to thank all of you for attending. You all drove a distance as well. I really appreciate that you're here. And we built in some time for mingling. We didn't put a Q&A in, but we put mingle time. So what time is it, Barb?
I look for watching for
It's 10 to 8. Okay, we've got about 10-15 minutes. I want every one of these yard signs gone. Everyone takes at least 1 or 2 home. Or maybe 1, but you pick 1 and take it. And we want that to happen, and give you time with the candidates to visit. So hopefully they'll make themselves available for you can have some conversations. Any other thoughts, candidates?
No, thank you.
You're good? All right. So mingle.